Hello everyone, James Williams with you. If you've just joined us, a very warm welcome to MEF Connects Wholesale 2023. I'm James, Director of Programs with the Mobile Ecosystem Forum. If you've never been to a MEF event, well, MEF, we've been around for over 20 years. We are very much a neutral organisation sitting in the middle of everything mobile. We help our members both grow their businesses, but also do that growth in a responsible manner, protecting subscribers, enterprises, and stakeholders of all types. Now, when it comes to protecting, the whole world of authentication and verification is very much front and center. And I've been in the industry a fairly long time, and I've never seen this topic get mentioned as much in conferences, in events, in trade newspapers, any type of media, literally anything you can think of. It's a topic that is front and center, and for a huge variety of reasons. Now, we're going to be exploring the business of authentication and verification right now, and I'd like to introduce my panel without further ado. We're going to launch straight into it. First of all, I'd like to welcome Mr. Stuart Mitchell from Sinch. Stuart.
Good morning.
Good morning, Stuart. Always on brand with your background there.
I do my best.
And Stuart and myself have only worked in 4 companies together during the past 20 plus years. Let's see if before the end of our careers we can make it 5. Who knows? Who knows?
There's still
what
time,
next
James.
might be. Anyway, great having you with us on the show, Stuart. What's your role within Sinch? And what's your background, quickly?
So, as James has alluded to, 20 plus years in telecoms. I've worked in a number of different areas and a number of different job roles. Currently at Sinch, which is one of the world's largest CPaaS providers, mobile messaging aggregators, and email providers, voice services. I'm a product manager working predominantly on rich messaging channels. So Apple Messages for Business, RCS, Viber.
Fantastic. And no doubt we'll touch upon those as well when it comes to the world of authentication and verification. Thanks, Stuart, for joining us. Next up, I'd like to invite Thangaraj Durairaj, Head of Carrier Voice from VCS, Vodafone Carrier Services. Tanga, lovely to see you again. Hi.
Yes. Hi, James. How are you doing? Thank you.
Good. Good. Love to see you. And it's always absolutely useful, of course, to have the perspective from a mobile operator, because mobile operators are, to a great extent, the world of wholesale, and we need your perspective. So thank you very much for joining us. Your job is the Head of Carrier Voice. I think that is what it says on the tin.
So. Yeah, absolutely. And then I'm also now part of the Vodafone roaming services, which also gives some more, flexibility the way how actually we do the business. Yeah.
Fantastic. So thank you for joining us. And next up, we've got Neil Downing from TMT Analysis. Neil, hi.
Good morning. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can hear you and we can see you fine. Neil, like to introduce yourself and TMT.
Yes, thank you, James. Good morning, everyone. So my name is Neil Downing, product for TMT, number intelligence company.
Okay, thank you. You're cutting out a little bit, but just to paraphrase, Neil is VP of product for TMT Analysis, which is one of the world's leading number intelligence companies. So thank you for joining us. And next up, and our last speaker for today is Andrés Alvargonzalez, Sales Director, Europe and North America from Yeda. Hey, Andrés. Hi.
Hi, good morning, everybody. So, Andrés, and I'm just in charge of the expansion of JDNet solutions across Europe for JDNet. And JDNet, it's a legal tech platform. So we are a trust service provider in the European Union. So we are a digital notary for digital transactions happening over different channels, email, SMS. And we partner with carriers, just to make the carriers that's becoming a trust service providers that can just certify that transactions are happening.
Fantastic. And you are far more than that. I've known Yeda for many, many years. So Yeda is a town in Spain where you're based, your company's based. You're also, of course, a messaging aggregator. You've got MVNOs in various countries around Europe too. So fantastic having you here. Andrés, Stuart, let's start with you. So authentication and verification. I received an email about a week ago now from Amex. So I've had an American Express card since the year 2000 for 23 years. And practically from the get-go, I've been able to choose SMS as my de facto option for receiving notifications, whether it be two-factor authentication or just balance updates, etc., etc. And suddenly, Amex have announced that from the end of October, that's changing, and they're going to be driving as much as they can through the app and other channels, not SMS. What's going on out there, and why would I have received that? What will be driving companies like Amex to change what they've been doing for years and years?
I think there's been a gradual raising up of SMS termination rates by the operators in response to the cost of living, the current inflationary pressures that they're feeling. And that is obviously feeding through to some of the major global corporations such as Amex, who would need to factor that into their bottom line. It's difficult. SMS is a fantastic channel, as we all know. It works on every single device. There's no issues of compatibility. It does have certain security challenges, which are built into the technology as part of the ability to set a dynamic sender. There's sometimes some blending of the traffic routes, direct, indirect, SIM boxes, etc., etc. So it seems likely that message is driven by a cost reduction process. We are seeing that across the board right now, and we're working very closely with all of our customers to help them understand how we can continue to provide the consumer services that they want to offer to their consumers, while also keeping control and potentially reducing some of their costs. So
this change in commercial model in terms of message pricing, has it been very, very dramatic in the past year or two compared to the previous decade or two? Has it been a very marked change that you're seeing at Sinch?
It's not dramatic. It's a gentle easing up, I would say, of termination rates. But it's come at the same time as the whole issue of artificial inflation of traffic has been exposed. So it's almost like a perfect storm. At the same time that the entire ecosystem is becoming more and more aware that some bad actors have been artificially inflating numbers, artificially pushing up their revenues, is the same point where the mobile operators feel they have to increase their prices slightly. So it's a double pressure coming on our enterprise partners. As I mentioned, they are looking for other methods they can use to not just authenticate, but communicate with their customers, their consumers.
Okay, thank you. Tanga, Julian from Omdia, one of the points he mentioned was A2P flash calling. You knew I would ask you about this.
Yeah.
So A2P flash calling was actually raised within MEF a couple of years ago, almost 2 years to the day, within our fraud and revenue assurance working group. And there's been so much discussion, and it's actually only in the past few months where this AIT issue, which Stuart mentioned, artificial inflation of traffic, has actually come to the top. So if it was like top of the pops, you'd unfortunately have AIT at the top. But number two, you would have A2P flash calling. What's your take at Vodafone on A2P flash calling? If you can just explain to the audience, because we can't assume everyone knows what it is. First of all, what it is, and what your take on A2P flash calling is from Vodafone as a group, your position, because I know some mobile operators go, ooh, it's all bad, block, block, block. Others embrace it as an opportunity.
Right. Yeah. I mean, if you didn't ask me this question, I would have been surprised, James. Okay, this is the topic. Right. Okay. Yeah. And I think, just to explain what is A2P voice or the flash calling, just in a minute. Basically, I mean, this has been positioned as a way to authenticate the consumers or any subscriber without the subscriber need to actually enter the OTP in an app. So the basic, from the user point of view, it may just like a call coming into your mobile phone, and you don't even need to do anything, and then just gets authenticated by your app, and then you're in to do the transaction. But from the operator point of view, it becomes like a call coming through your network, and then it never gets answered. That means the call has been, ending up using your network capacity, but then you will never be able to bill for it. Okay, so this is the way how the operators can look at this A2P flash calling phenomenon. At the same time, I think, what our view also is, because this is one of them has been talked about in the last couple of years as one of the biggest opportunity as a revenue generation. So it is like a, are we talking about subsidizing, A2P messages by using the flash call? And then do you call this as a monetization? I think it is mix of both, because the way how actually who you talk to and then how they actually explain this market, and then the opportunity can be seen. But I think from operator's point of view, I see this as sometime, okay, we are not against it, because we see them as one of the authentication method for the consumers. And then if it makes it easier, non-intrusive, and then makes it, seamless for the consumer, I think we would definitely like to support it. At the same time, there is a cost of the network is being used, because like I think I was in the previous session, I think obviously there is plenty of calls if it starts happening up in the network, and then who's going to pay for it? I think this is one of them we need to think about it as industry, because which is not the intended consequence of the SIP-based voice calling, but then I think it could potentially can change the way how actually we are reacting to this situation.
Exactly, Tango. The first thing is always to be able to get visibility. Once you have visibility on the channel, you can see what's happening in the behaviour and choose how to react. And a MEF working party of members put together a fantastic document all about A2P flash. And they surmise that as long as you have the visibility, you then have choice, because you're able to control it. And it might be you put the commercial model the same for A2P flash as A2P SMS. Then there's no cannibalization. You're leaving ultimately your enterprise clients with a choice, whether you want flash or A2P SMS. But of course, there's a different user experience for SMS and flash as well. And there's another way as well with flash. You could just have dedicated trunks for A2P flash if you as a mobile operator wanted to monetize it like that. So there are different ways around it, but it's safe to say A2P flash is here and now and will be a rising topic. Andrés, we've talked about SMS, we've talked about A2P flash, but what other means of verification, authentication do YADA work with? What else is out there?
Yep. So, well, the first thing is that authentication is different from verification. Authentication means the process of determining who is an individual and who, if this individual is claimed to be. So, and there are different ways of authentication. The most powerful one would be multi-factor authentication. And but there are basic layers of authentications, like having a password. As you have already mentioned, phishing is all around the place, but also the tokens that we have discussed. So sending an SMS via the carrier channel, using the RCS, just to send that token, or even send this message by an email. So those are basic layers, just to authenticate. And if you move further, you can do biometrics. Biometrics could be added as part of the multi-factor way of authentication. And finally, the strongest one, it's providing a digital certificate. And this is where the European Union is just moving towards having a unique ID for all the European Union, where it's not just your physical ID, but also your digital ID that helps you just to authenticate what I have mentioned, that the individual is who it claims that is. Verification is different. Verification means that I ensure that the data that I'm sending over this digital transaction over the channel, that could be SMS or RCS or email, it is sent and sent by this individual. And verification is linked to the value of just providing OTPs. So, and this is where this ecosystem and this and carriers are critical. So I don't know if this gives you some clue about all what is happening, because all what is happening is really linked to a big trend on cybercrime. So cybercrime is all around the place, and COVID has been a massive driver and catalyzer of cybercrime.
It has, and we saw that a lot in our MEF fraud event in London. I think it was September the 5th. So we saw that a lot. A question. You've talked about individuals. What about organizations having their own identity? Does what you said for individuals hold true for organizations as well?
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is where the European Union is just moving toward just not just identifying you as a person, but also identifying an organization with an owner. And look, underneath this there are liabilities. So we are just definitely moving into the digital channel. Digital journeys are all around the place. The ecosystem is just ready. Now there's a challenge in the same way as you are just pushing or just to have this easier, more convenient channel in order to interact with customers or B2B organizations and structures. You have public administrations, companies that are just delivering transactions or just communicating with customers. They will need to have an identification that will be valid, and it will be part of the regulation, and it's already been happening.
Yeah, it's not easy though, because some company brand names, for example, are national or nationwide here in the UK. So many different types of organization share that same name. So verifying isn't always easy. Anyway, Neil, we're glad to see your connectivity stabilized. Lovely to have you with us.
Thank you.
No, we can hear you absolutely perfectly. So touching what Andrés said, we know, unless I think if you've been in a coma or have been out of internet and telecoms reach for years, you will have realized that there's seems to be definitely an increasing amount of fraud generally. That's because so many transactions have moved online, and there's a really nice juicy target for bad actors. Are you seeing yourselves, because I know TMT Analysis, you have a lot of financial services clients as well. Are you seeing very, very much there's an increasing demand for this protection side of things and this whole verification layer as well? So you're seeing an increase?
So the simple answer is yes. Thank you. The longer answer is that we are seeing more demand, not just because the attack surface for fraudsters is increasing, and not just because fraud is generally increasing. I mean, the amount of money that's being transacted on mobile channels is increasing, and where there's money, there's normally fraud. But it's also that within the use cases of so many businesses today, there is a need to definitively authenticate the device, the mobile number that is on the end of a session actually is the device you expect it to be. And one of the areas that we've been working on is with the mobile industry. So carriers like Vodafone have new technologies. It's called variously silent network authentication, silent authentication, MISD and verify, MISD and authenticate, depending on which operator it is. But essentially it works in broadly the same way everywhere. And what it's doing is replacing this need for any kind of SMS one-time password or flash call by creating a software token that is fed through the mobile phone over the cellular radio network. And when that token arrives into the mobile operator's network, they authenticate that device definitively as being the one that they expect. So not just the same phone number, but also the same SIM card number, the same handset IMEI number, and all of those attributes that you would associate with the device, so that they can say definitively, without being susceptible to any kind of impersonation attack or account takeover or man-in-the-middle attack or any of these other terms, that device is actively the one that they're seeing. So we launched that service in 6 countries earlier this year, and we've been working to get brands on board with how they can use that technology. And the other one, if I may, which we're starting to see some traction with, is actually authenticating devices using the SS7 signaling messages. So working with a range of operators who have effectively whitelisted us for that purpose, for a certain set of customers that we know are legitimate and doing this for the right reasons, and actually using, I mean, I can explain the detail, but I'm sure most people don't care about that at this level, using dedicated SS7 messages to verify the attributes of a device definitively in real time without any user intervention.
Fantastic. Neil, thank you very much. Now, Stuart, bringing you back into the conversation. It's all good and well protecting consumers, protecting stakeholders. But all of us, certainly the speakers on this call and much of the audience, will be well aware that actually far worse than letting spam through to mobile subscribers is actually blocking legitimate traffic. How do we as an industry, it's a very wide question, big question, how do we as an industry go about our job trying to protect as best as possible, but ensuring we don't overcook it and overdo it and end up blocking legitimate traffic? Because surely that is supremely painful to the customer experience and can hurt enterprises massively.
Yeah, it's a really difficult question, James, as you know. A lot of effort has gone into trying to protect the consumer, whether it's the MEF sender ID registry scheme, whether it's, the newer channels like RCS with its very, very strict brand verification process that the Google actually run through in conjunction with the operators. I'm not particularly aware of false positives, right? The number of messages that are being blocked that shouldn't necessarily be blocked. Typically, if this is one-time passwords that people are asking for that they don't receive, then the enterprise will be aware because the consumer will go back and say, please send me another one, or something of that nature. So I think actually the problem is the other way around right now, is that the systems are too open and letting too much fraudulent traffic through rather than necessarily blocking messages that shouldn't be blocked. Okay,
thank you very much. Tanga, moving to you from the mobile operator perspective, I'm actually going to stick with the same point, the same question. What are you doing within Vodafone? Because I know you've got a very, very strong messaging hub, and various research around the world has actually shown that compared to other mobile network operator groups, you're doing far better than most in terms of the amount of revenue you get from A2P SMS. So you're certainly big in the world of messaging and everything like that, and security and securing all of those areas. So how do you make sure you don't have these false positives?
Yeah, and I think we also work on a few other different technologies, James. I think just to reiterate, I think the mobile number is our alter ego these days. So at the same time, majority of us doing everything, every transaction with a mobile. As a mobile operator, it becomes super critical, especially in Vodafone. We are very passionate about making sure our consumers, our subscribers are not being subject to any frauds. So that it's the paramount to us. At the same time, as part of the digital economy, we also try to support the e-commerce industry without too much of the complications about authenticating the customers. So what we work on is the different technology. I mean, A2P is a very popular method, where the SMS, and then also the things like identity verification. So we could actually potentially enable the consumer identification by using a different API, so that because who better than a mobile operator has the real-time knowledge of the consumer, where they are, what they are doing, is a call is being actually or they diverted the call, if they try to get the call on it, or SIM has been swapped into the different device.
That's exactly what I want to hear, because so many providers like TMT analysis, we've got XConnect on Next, and there are others out there, NetNumber, Telesign, etc. They could all benefit. We as consumers could all benefit if they were able to access more of this trusted information for specific use cases, for specific clients, such as financial service providers. For this information, it's critical. And it's great to hear that from you, because I know personally many mobile network operators are not as forthcoming, should we say, and say for data protection that we can't share this, but you can absolutely work within GDPR type regulations and share certain information.
Absolutely. I think absolutely, James. I think together, I think we need to collaborate, find a way to make it work for all of us, because end of the day, economy has to improve.
Fantastic. Thank you, Tanga. And Andrés, I can't believe it, but believe it or not, we've only got 5 minutes left.
Look at that.
We needed 45 minutes or an hour for this topic, or longer. We could have had a 3-hour workshop and still not be done. Well, you've heard about this. We've talked about SMS. A2P Flash, there's a question from Mohammed Bilal Khan. What do you think the future of Flash calling is? We've touched on A2P Flash. We've talked about that a bit, and I think A2P Flash is growing. I know Sinch, Stuart, you're a very big player in the world of A2P Flash. So it's a real channel and can be used properly, as Tanga mentioned as well. It's there and should be used, but in a responsible way. So What does the future look like? We've been talking a lot about digital and APIs and things like that, but we can't forget that there's still so many people around the world that don't have access to the internet. They don't have smartphones, and actually SMS is practically going to be one of the only options left to authenticate them. Are we saying that A2P SMS should never be used for authentication?
No, absolutely the contrary. So if I can just give my summary in just 2 minutes with
absolutely, yeah,
a kind of a good example of how the revolution is coming to Europe, and I strongly believe that it's going to be driven by carriers. Let me give the example of what everybody understands, that it's when you want to send something that it's important and relevant, and you go to the postcard and you go to the postal service provider. That is an official trust service provider that is going to knock in the door of your house and it's going to deliver the letter. It's going to look at your eyes and it's going to say, this is sent to you, it's certified, registered, and you are this person, please validate. Now it is proven. No court, no tribunal will refuse that position. Well, that is what the European Union is just planning to do in the coming months and years. Carriers are in a fantastic position in order just to become that postman that is going to knock on the door from the sender to receiver. And we are already working with a number of carriers, one of them in Europe, delivering a platform in order just to become or make this carrier a trust service provider, a digital witness of transactions. It could be via SMS, it could be via RCS, it could be via email, but it's going to be validated by the regulation approved by the European Union with the support of a trust service provider that it's JADA. That is already happening, and it's just a matter of time that you will see that when you knock on the door, the other guy that is going to open the door will need just to present an ID, and it will be a digital ID that will be certified by the European Union. Carriers are perfect postmans, just to validate that transaction.
They're trusted. They're some of the most trusted brands on the planet. If you look at Africa,
you bet.
MTN, they're the most trusted brand in Africa in 2022. That just shows you. So fantastic. Andrés, Neil, I'm going to leave the closing remarks to you. It's great we've had Tanga with us from Vodafone. It's clear that Vodafone are embracing the opportunities. They understand that by sharing various attributes and information with providers such as yourselves, it can go a long way to helping to protect enterprises and subscribers. What would you say to, unfortunately, the many mobile operators out there who are not so enlightened? What message would you give to them?
Of course. And fortunately, there's also a question related to this about what the revenue model looks like and who pays for it. So ultimately, to answer that question, of course, yes, there is revenue for the mobile operators in doing these services. The silent authentication that I mentioned is actually more expensive, and the mobile operator gets more revenue than for a A2P SMS, and certainly for a flash call where maybe they get something, maybe they get nothing. But the person who pays for that is the brand, the financial services company, the bank, the whoever. And the benefit for that bank is they don't buy an SMS one-time password or any other authentication technology, and they're getting a much better service, which is more secure and lower friction because the user has to do nothing as part of that process. All they have to do is have the phone in their hand and be connecting via it in the first place. So the models are there. And the only other thing I would say to close this off, I think although we talk a lot about the weaknesses of SMS, I want to reiterate what other members of the panel have said. Doing a secondary authentication via SMS is still 1,000 times better than doing no authentication. And Neil, 1,000 times more secure.
Neil, you did my summary. We're bang on 11 o'clock here in the UK in 15 seconds. I was about to say that absolutely SMS is better than absolutely nothing. Tanga, thank you for joining us, giving us the Vodafone mobile operator perspective. Andrés, a pleasure seeing you from JADA. Stuart, as always, Sinch, and Neil, well done. Thank you. Great close. And thank you, TMT Analysis. And join me next for another session. Thank you.